There are a number of leaders of what's left of the opposition, political opposition in Russia, and none of them perhaps at first glance would appear to dominate over another. They all seem to be a collective of leaders, opposition leaders, with no one person standing out. But if you step back a bit, there's something about Boris Nemtsov that makes him quite different and a lot more threatening to Putin than the other leaders. The first is that, unlike Khodorkovsky or Navalny, Nemtsov clearly, unequivocally spoke out against the invasion of Crimea, the illegality of it, spoke out against the invasion, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine in the Donbass. The others haven't been as unequivocal or clear, especially when it comes to Crimea. Amongst Russian Democrats, the political culture of imperialism seems to kick in when it comes to the issue of Crimea. Not so with Nemtsov. He was going to call Putin's lies in a hard-hitting documentary which was coming up. So that was one element that made him significantly different from the other opposition leaders. But the second one is, let's fast track to the fall. Russia's economy is sputtering. There could be a very significant set of economic circumstances by the fall. Putin is absolutely paranoid of people in the streets. And if it starts to hit the average Russian's pocketbook in a significant way, they will be out in the streets. And we've seen in the past, not that many years ago, crowds of hundreds of thousands have come out into the streets in Moscow. Putin's personal experience, East Germany, people went out into the streets. He was part of the secret services, the intelligence services. Stasi offices were surrounded by people. Offices burnt. The collapse of the Warsaw Pact. He associates mass movements of people, the people's will expressed through the street, as something tremendously dangerous to the structures that he has affiliations with. Empire and the intelligence services. Both are threatened by that. That's why the Maidan in Ukraine was so threatening. It threatened the power vertical he's created in Russia. Come fall, with an economic collapse in Russia, who could lead the people in those sets of circumstances? So you need to identify who those individuals might be and eliminate that potential threat. This is where Boris Nemtsov once again stands out. Unlike the other leaders, Boris actually had experience in running the country. He's a former high-ranking government official, spent years at the top levels of government and in the Kremlin. And he was a capable politician. So not only is he experienced, he's a capable politician. Unlike the other opposition leaders who don't have that sort of experience. Nemtsov is a former prime minister. That's crossed a very significant line. It means anyone in Russia is potentially fair game. It's just a small step beyond to have some like Gorbachev knocked off. Not that he would have a reason to, because there's no challenge from someone like Gruevski. But basically anyone involved in politics in Russia understands that this is a very significant line. These aren't investigative journalists who were killed. These weren't some minor oligarchs, because the major ones tend not to get killed. They tend to be either imprisoned or they escape to the West. This is a former high government official at the highest levels of the Kremlin. So under Putin's rule, anyone can be assassinated.